Hello. So this week's assignment for the video discussion was to research our state board of counseling and look at the disciplinary actions there. And it also was to research and find what the most common reasons that counselors were disciplined by the board. In doing research for this, I came across an article from 2017 entitled Licensure Board Actions Against Professional Counselors, Implications for Counselor Training and Practice. And the citation for this will be in the description for this video. It goes on to say that the most common reasons for discipline in 2017, at least, and what I found after this supports the same. Almost all the information that I found in different articles were giving these same percentages and numbers. The number one was 24% with dual relationships. And when I researched dual relationships for this, it said that in most cases it was a relationship that had been established prior to the counseling relationship beginning. So it was friends or family of a counselor, and then they began counseling them. That wasn't always the case, but that was the most common for dual relationships, and that makes sense. Number two was incompetence, 17%. When researching this, it looked like incompetence, for me at least, and I know it's probably for people already in the field, they're able to better establish what incompetence is versus some of the other fields that fell into disciplinary action. But incompetency to me looked like it ranged from misrepresentation to poor documentation, and even in some cases fees, inappropriate fees. But both the misrepresentation and the fee assessment fall in other categories. So incompetency to me seemed it's ambiguous. To me, it doesn't seem well defined, but I'm sure I'll learn more as I go along in the courses. Third, with 8%, was professional misrepresentation. This appeared to be more of like when a counselor says that they have adequate training or are certified in things like addiction or marriage and family counseling, and they are not. And they pass themselves off as that and then get reprimanded or get reported for that after the fact. Fourth on the list was sexual relationships with clients at 7%. I understand how all of these on the list can happen. I think the least likely for me is going to be the sexual relationships with clients. I haven't asked my wife, but I don't think she'll be on board with that. So I think I'll probably steer clear. Breach of confidentiality was the fifth one at 5%, and I can certainly understand how that would happen, saying the wrong thing, the wrong piece of information in the earshot of the wrong person. And sixth was inappropriate fee assessment at 4%, followed by failure to obtain informed consent at 1%, followed lastly by failure to report abuse at 1%. So those two are, of course, 1% that it's not common. And it seems as if people in the counseling field are doing a good job in the last few on that category. All of those, again, are, I can imagine or I can envision scenarios where that would play out. The dual relationship, incompetency, professional misrepresentation. These are things that are just going to, us new counselors have to learn how to avoid, and through the training and the program that we're currently in now, I'm sure we'll be given the tools to avoid those pitfalls in the future, along with the practicum and the internship, where we'll actually get to work with other counselors and work face-to-face with clients. I'm sure more information will be given on that, on how to avoid these areas. The next topic in this was to read through a disciplinary case that had recently taken place in my state, which I am trying to get licensed through Virginia. So What I found is that I don't want to be subject to any disciplinary action, because I was very surprised at how easy it was to pull up the disciplinary actions. I'm not saying they shouldn't be. I'm just saying I don't want my business put out there for everybody. So I'm going to try my hardest not to get disciplined. Well, that's one of the reasons. Within the past 90 days, there was a case that was brought up, and the counselor was disciplined for misrepresenting her time spent with clients. She had documented that she had spent an afternoon counseling 2 clients in this complaint, and it was found by the board that she had falsified the notes to indicate that she had provided services. So what came of this was she was reprimanded. She had her licensure restricted for 6 months until she could provide proof that she had taken a board-approved course of at least 3 college credit hours on the subject of documentation and record keeping. This seemed appropriate. As I read through it, of course I don't know the specifics of the case. This is all very broad strokes and legal in the documents that I obtained online on this. But it seems as if whatever infraction occurred here, it doesn't say whether it was done maliciously, like she was trying to misrepresent the time she had spent, or whether it was an error in her documentation that she had the wrong days on it. Whatever the case may be, this seemed an appropriate, it seemed an appropriate punishment for what had taken place in this case. There was a follow-up document on this that was dated 3 months later that, 2 months later, that showed that she had been fully reinstated by the state of Virginia, and that she had, of course, taken the 3-hour course over documentation and bookkeeping. The final 2 prompts on this were the ACA Code of Ethics. What does it state about counselor impairment? And how do I feel about that? The ACA Code of Ethics 2014 in section C.2.G deals with impairment. And it states that counselors will self-monitor, and they'll look for a few key things. They'll seek assistance if they find that they are becoming impaired, and that they'll step away from the profession if they find that their impairment is impeding their relationship with clients. The Virginia state guidelines follow the same self-monitor and step away if needs be, and seek assistance, of course. So the question that comes to mind on this is the same questions that came up in the text reading as well. How can we trust counselors to self-monitor and make sure that they are taking appropriate actions to take self-care when they are already at a low point? Some people can. Some people can recognize that they're not doing well, they're not performing well. But how can every counselor, if we broad stroke this, how can every counselor, can we be assured that they're going to self-monitor correctly and recognize the warning signs in themselves? And furthermore on that, if you're required, if this is your livelihood and you're required to step away from counseling, will all counselors be honest in the fact that they need to step away when it's going to financially hamstring them? I would think that would add to the depression and the impairment. But those are the questions I have for it. Thank you very much.